Am I where you would like me to be sitting? All right, so yesterday we told you football was back, but now it's really back. The standings don't all just still say 0-0. Packers won, Bears lost, and we are here to celebrate. This is The Sweat. I'm Adam Kaufman. I'll be guiding this ship for the next hour with lots of people and likely even more bad jokes. So with that, I'm going to make like Mitch Trubisky and do nothing while we bring in our NFL panel of Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and Rosalie Michaels. You know her as the fantasy girl. Good to see you, gang. Let's kick things off with our NFL cover to cover to see which teams you like to cover their spreads on Sunday. Okay, we're going to begin with the Ezekiel Elliott-led Cowboys. Big 7.5-point favorites at home over the Giants. Rosalie, ladies first. You all in on the boys getting it done?
First of all, I want to say that you said bad jokes. That Mitch Trubisky joke was fantastic.
Don't give him that. There's a reason I start with you. Thank you very much.
I liked it. Going in, you know what? The Cowboys hold a 4-1 edge in the previous 5 season openers in Dallas. They've also completely swept the Giants the past 2 years. And let's be fair, Zeke is going to show that he's worth that new contract, even with his limited snap count. Not to mention, we'll get some goodness out of Gallup, Cooper, Cobb, too. Dak's going to use his legs a lot, I think, this game, though. But the offensive line is healthy, and that Giants defense, largely inexperienced group. So to win this game, key is they're going to have to limit Saquon. In this game last year, Dallas was able to hold him to under 30 rushing yards, which is good news. Bad news is that he also caught 14 balls for 80 yards. So they're really going to have to limit him. I do like the Cowboys defensive unit, but, they're not going to make things easy for Saquon, but we all know what Saquon can do. So this game's going to be close. I'm a Cowboys fan. I know it's going to be close. It always is. Giants were 7-1 against the spread, though, on the road last season. I think they keep that up. Dallas wins, but New York covers.
Reed, if it makes you feel better, I'll bring myself down to peg. You don't even have to do it because we know that Gallup's going to giddy up all over the field. He could be a fantasy star for this team, a little breakout unsung hero. What do you think, big guy? Cowboys going to cover?
Oh, it's good. It's good to have you back, Hoff.
Good to see you,
man. I talked with Steve actually about this earlier, a couple weeks or in the week. Last week is that the Giants have a decent shot at covering this spread. We know that Rosalie painted out the history between these two teams. and what the Cowboys were able to do and the Giants were able to do on the road. Pretty good road splits when it comes to covering against the spread. Cowboys not so good, right? They're 1-4 in opening games at covering the spread. So I like the Giants here. If you look at their offensive line too, it improved quite a bit with that OBJ trade, bringing Zeitler over from Cleveland. So I think they have a real good shot at this number.
Jeff, you on board?
This is actually kind of a close one. Reed's right. I mean, the Giants have been pretty good, like as away underdogs last year. They were pretty good at covering in these spots. At the same time, you look at the Cowboys, they've had the Giants number over the past 6 or 7 meetings. I think they're like 6-1 in their last 7. And they've been pretty good as home favorites too. So I think it boils down to what you think of these two teams. I don't think much of the Giants. I like the fact they have Evan Ingram. They're planning to feature him, but I just don't think they have the depth. I think the Cowboys are just going to be able to stack up against Saquon Barkley, and I'd still take the Cowboys, even though it's kind of a bigger spread to cover.
Yeah, Eli Manning's going to have to get his work done, obviously, with Saquon and with Ingram. And after that, bit of a guessing game, especially no Golden Tate. But Kyler Murray is going to make his NFL debut against the Lions. These two teams are expected to really stink this year. Murray's Cards actually 2.5-point dogs in his NFL debut. So which way you lean, Nelrick?
I like the Cardinals quite a bit in this spot. I think everyone's kind of on the Lions. They're actually a pretty big public sentiment bet, which is generally you kind of want to fade it when it gets to be like 70-75%, which is kind of the numbers that we're seeing come in on the Lions. I think everyone is kind of on Detroit because they had such a good road record last year against the spread. I think they were 6-1 or around that for covering. It might have been 6-2. I can't remember, but. Again, the Lions, they might have been good on the road last year. They weren't very good in September. And I really also think that you need to throw out everything you know about the Arizona Cardinals from last year because this is going to be such a different team. So looking at everything, I just don't have that much faith in the Lions. I really like this spot. I like betting against the public. And I'm all in on the Cardinals rebounding this year. So give me the points here with the Cardinals.
Well, you're one of the few. I mean, new coach, new quarterback, looking like the same outcome in the eyes of a lot of people. What do you think, Reed?
Yeah, you said it right there, Koff. It's a new coach, new quarterback, a coach that really, in a weak conference, didn't show that he could win or have a winning record. Yes, he ran a ton of plays. Yes, the pace is going to be up. You kind of like that for the season-long or the DFS fantasy output. When you look at this number, I'm going to be with the Lions. I know public sentiment says that the Lions are getting a lot of the traction, a lot of public money. But rightfully so. I mean, this defense is really bad in Arizona. I mean, they're not going to be with Patrick Peterson. Alfred's out on the IR. And now you got a guy like Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay with Matt Stafford back there. And Darren Bevel, we know his track record with running the ball. If these guys get up, which is kind of what Patricia probably wants, get up by 2 scores, kind of what Belichick does, right? He gets up by 7 or 10 points, and then he just runs the clock out. I can easily see this happen. That defense and that offensive line, too. When you look at Arizona's offensive line against Detroit's defensive line, Detroit has one of the best defensive lines in the NFL coming into the season. That really scares me for Kyler, so give me the Lions here.
I want to remind people, Cliff Kingsbury wasn't even a good college coach. I think that's an important thing to note here as he embarks upon his NFL
were
career.
Good there, buddy. So just slow down your roll, okay? He's fine.
It's not Jacksonville. Don't worry. Don't worry, Ulrich.
Yeah, okay. Well, a little more optimism than I expected there, I think. Guys all in on the rebound, though. Rosalie, how about you? You like the Lions to cover this?
Yeah, no. I'm actually going to agree with Jeff on this. No surprise. I mean, you guys know I'm from the desert, so obviously I've got a lot of hope. But I'm also looking at the numbers, right? You know what? The Lions, I don't think they can keep up with an air raid offense. Reed was mentioning, they're going to have to get up quick. The only time he has a lot more faith in Stafford than I do because I have zero faith in Matthew Stafford. The bright spot for the Lions is Kerryon Johnson. If they get Kerryon Johnson the ball 15 plus times, the Lions win. The problem is they don't do that. They rely on their throwing. And so, but the Cardinals are going to throw a lot more. Yeah, Kingsbury was not successful in college. We know that. But the Cards can win this if they get the score up early, which is possible against the Lions' poor secondary that allowed 102.7 passer rating to QBs last year. Kyler just needs to avoid throwing it. He's very accurate, but he needs to avoid throwing it in Slay's direction. I think he'll be okay then. And he's got a good bit of history on his side because quarterbacks making their first career starts are 9-1-1 against the spread since 2013 and 8-0-1 against the spread as the underdog, which he is. So I think
there we go. That's why she's here to bring the real stats, Kaufman.
Well, yeah. So somebody has to do some actual real research on this show. We appreciate that. That's why we have Rosalie here. Guys, I don't know if Baltimore is going to be any good this year, but the Ravens should at least be exciting, or at least Lamar Jackson should be exciting. And Baltimore is a big road favorite, -7 in South Beach. So who has a better chance of covering, Reed? Do you like the Birds or the Finns? Come on, that wasn't even a joke. That was just a setup.
I know, but it's you, right? I have to give you the benefit of the doubt or the opposite of that. But look, I mean, any team going down to South Beach, we know this. It's going to be tough. But if you look at Baltimore, really interesting. When they were a touchdown or more favorite last year, they were 2-2. So this kind of goes down the middle, but both teams are very different. Baltimore being extremely run heavy, having Lamar Jackson there in a full off season to plan for. And Miami is going to be one of the worst teams, probably with, sorry, Rosalie, Arizona, in terms of their defense. Their defenses are going to be really bad. And so, again, I like the Ravens here. When you look at just their last matchups, Baltimore against Miami, Baltimore is 8-0 against the spread. So give me the Birds in South Beach there, Koff.
I tell you, I'm guilty until proven innocent with that guy, Jeff. What do you think here?
I mean, this is probably where people start to think I'm kind of nuts because I actually really like the Dolphins in this game. And there's a few reasons why. The first one is, again, I talked about public sentiment. The Ravens are shaping up to be one of the biggest public sentiment bets I've seen in the past 3 or 4 years, like 85% of the money flowing into the Ravens. This line started at -5.5. It's gone up to -7. Again, that's just red flags for me everywhere. Then you start to look at these teams' record. Miami has just been a tough home team, at least against the spread. They've been good covering against the spread at home. They're 5-3-1 as home underdogs over the last 2 seasons. The Ravens were only 1-2 as away favorites last year. They still have a young quarterback. Lamar Jackson was kind of turnover prone, mainly with the fumbles last year. We saw what happened with Mitch Trubisky, a young quarterback in the first game, his sort of second full season anyways. I actually have a little bit of faith here. I think 7 points is too much to give to the Ravens. I think the Dolphins are live to actually compete for the win in this game. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I actually really like taking the points here with Miami.
You got to get excited about Lamar Jackson. This guy's going to make Cordell Stewart look like Tom Brady, and we should be excited about that this year. Lead the league in rushing yards for QBs. What do you think, Rosalie? Who covers in this one?
Yeah, first of all, Reed, I'm going to send Sizzle and Chandler Jones your way to teach you about that Arizona defense. No
Please
problem. Don't. So, we've already said it. Yeah, that guy, Lamar Jackson, we've been talking about, he's going to steamroll the Finns. And that defense is going to take care of the rest of it. You know what? Baltimore is covered in each of the past meetings between these two. This is an easy thing. I'm going to give props to Miami, who has covered in 6 straight season openers, which is the longest active streak in the league. But that ends on Sunday because the Ravens have scored 54 unanswered points versus the Dolphins. Sure, it's a big spread, but Baltimore wins this in a blowout.
Listen,
Jeff, I'm surprised you didn't mention Fitzmagic. Isn't that your boy?
Yeah, it's magic, baby. I mean, of course he is. That's it just factors right into it. That's like an extra 3 points, right?
I'm glad you brought him up. I was just going to say, we all know Miami's best chance to win this game is by playing Ryan Fitzpatrick, but it's not going to happen yet. Anyway, good work. I'll see you again a little bit later. First, I'm going to change my shirt here and let Adam Levitan educate us on some of his top plays in baseball after that. Finally, football is back, and guess what? So are we. Adam Kaufman with Adam Levitan. It's Levitan's Leverage, Week 1 edition. It's good to see you, buddy.
Pleasure is always on this side of the webcam, my friend.
Well, you're too kind. Flattery will get you everywhere. Let's start with Dalvin Cook, all right? The Vikings back home against the Falcons. Tremendous matchup, 6K to roster him. Atlanta gave up more DK points per game to running backs than anyone else last year. So, no-brainer?
Yeah, I mean, the way that the Vikings want to play is 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and run the ball a ton with Dalvin Cook. And I think they've been underwhelmed by backup Alexander Madison, and I think Dalvin Cook, 1 year further removed from the ACL, gives them more confidence to go out there and really run Dalvin Cook into the ground. So as you mentioned, the matchup could not be much better home against Atlanta, and then you have a really talented player in Dalvin Cook. You have the right coaching philosophy that Mike Zimmer wants to use for running backs, and you also have just a really good 3-down and goal line skill set for Dalvin Cook, and he's also really cheap relative to that kind of volume usage on DraftKings. So, yeah.
A guy who's just a tick more expensive, you got Chris Godwin, $6,200. He's finally got a full-time shot for the Bucs against a Niners D that really struggled with slot receivers last year. So how do you suppose that Bruce Arians is going to deploy him to make this an advantageous spot?
Yeah, and people are going to say that Chris Godwin is too expensive at $6,200. I don't think that's the case. I mean, obviously Deshaun Jackson is gone, Adam Humphries is gone, Bruce Arians is in as the coordinator, and they're using him similar to the way that Bruce Arians previously used Larry Fitzgerald, previously used Hines Ward, which means in the slot in 3 wide sets, out wide in 2 wide receiver sets. Then he also gets to face San Francisco, who really struggles with the cornerback position outside of Richard Sherman. So I do not think that Chris Godwin is too expensive on this slate.
So a good value spot if you want to pay up elsewhere, that's Evan Ingram. He's in Dallas, only $4,800. He should see plenty of targets from Eli Manning with the Giants thin at receiver. The tight end, he put up big numbers when Odell Beckham Jr. was out. Now, of course, OBJ is gone. So what do you expect?
Yeah, not only is OBJ gone, but Golden Tate, who they signed to do something to replace OBJ, is suspended for this game. So they're going in really thin with pass catchers. I think Ingram, Saquon Barkley, and Sterling Shepard will handle a majority of Eli Manning's targets. And this is a game where I expect the Giants to be trailing a lot. Evan Ingram is a baller, man. Total freak athlete. And as you mentioned, when Odell has been down, he's made the most of his opportunities. So, yeah, I think Evan Ingram is around the cheapest that we'll see him for much of the year.
Football season's here, Levy, and that box is still there, too. Can you at least tell me it's empty at this point? Have you built the truck?
I wish I could tell you it was empty.
Your poor kids. Adam Levitan's Leverage. Thanks, bud.
College football is back, and now you can be part of the games every Saturday thanks to DraftKings and Coors Light. Introducing the DraftKings College Football Pick'em presented by Coors Light. It's an all-new contest that puts you in the middle of the action in the race for the College Football National Championship, giving you a shot at your share of up to $70,000 cash. Oh, it's totally free to enter. Each week throughout the regular season, you will choose the winners in 15 featured college football games. No odds, no point spread. Just pick the winner and start racking up points. Each correct pick earns you 50 points. Speaking of points, you can get more of them by nailing your picks for 5 of the nation's top games. These marquee matchups will be featured as ice-cold games. Get those right, you will earn 100 points. Plus, the more ice-cold games you pick correctly, the chiller your cold meter gets, which adds even more bonus points to your score. Get 1 to 2 ice-cold picks correct, earn an extra 100 points. Get 3 to 4 ice-cold picks correct, earn an extra 200 points. Get all 5 ice-cold picks correct, earn an extra 300 points. So get in on the DraftKings College Football Pick'em presented by Coors Light. Put your college football prowess to the test and earn yourself some cold, hard cash.
All right, welcome back and welcome into our baseball guys. Steve Buchanan and Greg Ehrenberg, both from DK Live. Guys, chase or fade time. We're going to look at some DK Sportsbook bets, okay? Let's start in Boston because I'm hosting and that's just what we do. Red Sox fighting for their playoff lives. They've got their rival Yankees in town who are just so much better this year. Best team in baseball. Yolis Chacin has not pitched since July when he was still a Brewer at that point, but he's going to start in place of the scratch David Price for the Sox tonight. Bukes, chase or fade New York thumping Chacin and easily hitting its 5.5 run over.
So kind of you to say that they're fighting for the playoff lives. They're done. They're roasted. I don't even care if they sweep this weekend. Count them out. Anyways, in terms of Chacin, once upon a time, this was the Brewers' opening day starter, and things have just gone haywire for him since, between injuries, getting cut, just getting shelled on the mound here. Like you said, he hasn't pitched since the month of July, and 5.24 xFIP, 48% hard hit rate on the season. It has just been an absolute disaster for him on the mound. He's only expected to get a couple innings here tonight, but even if it was just a couple innings, he's probably going to get shelled in this spot. So don't like him here at all. I think the Yankees thump him.
All right, so you're going to chase that. Greg, you on board?
Well, first, it's just good to see Steve's face because we had a little call earlier in the day, and it was just based on what words we aren't allowed to call Steve on the show anymore. So it's good to see him here and friend of everybody. But
I wasn't on that call, so I guess I can still call him whatever I want.
Yeah, you can. Idiot is acceptable, by the way. We went over that.
Good. No, good to know.
Here's one of the things about the Red Sox adding Chacin. You know what it reminds me of? Remember when the Red Sox picked up Cashner earlier in the season? It was just kind of like, why? Like, why did they add Cashner? That's exactly what I feel about Chacin, because Chacin's been awful this season. He's a 5.79 ERA. The only thing that I really think works in his favor tonight is that the weather is expected to be not very good. It's a little bit of rain in the forecast. The wind is expected to be blowing in. So my only real concern with the Yankees tonight is just going to be, could the rain like cause the game to be cut short or something like that? But no, they should hit Chacin whenever he's on the mound. So I'm fine with the over on the Yankees.
I think you're discrediting Cashner's sub-4 ERA at the time that they acquired him, but that's neither here nor there. We don't need to do that right now. The guy that I like to call Are You Robbie Ray, he's been racking up wins for the Diamondbacks. 7 of his last 10 appearances. DK Sportsbook has noticed 2, plus 165 to get a win tonight against the Reds. So, Greg, chase or fade, he's going to do it.
So I'm going to fade, and here's why. He has had a pretty good ERA since the All-Star break, except he's a 4.42 FIP. So he's gotten really lucky, particularly in terms of his strand rate. He's walking a ton of guys, but an 82.6% strand rate since the All-Star break. So this is just not sustainable to me. He's walking a lot of guys. The strikeout rate is still decent, which it always is for Ray, but he tends to give up runs. Now he's on the road in a fairly strong hitter's park. So I think this is a spot where we start seeing more of those hitters that he's been putting on base start to come around to score, because it's in Cincinnati, really good place for hitters, and I don't see any reason to think that Ray's going to stop walking guys.
Chasing or fading, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to fade the win part, but overall, I think Ray's in a better spot than Greg's kind of alluding to here. Like, I know the ballpark is definitely not, something that's in his benefit, but the Reds just do nothing against lefties. They got a 320 WOBA, 158 isolated power, a 93 WRC plus. The thing that worries me about him getting the win is that the bullpen has just been really shaky lately. Over the last 2 weeks, 5.23 xFIP, one of the highest walk percentages in the league. That's for the bullpen, not even just for Ray. So there could be a lot of walks in this game here. But I think Ray will be fine overall. He's actually one of the pitchers I like more on this slate than a lot of the others. But I don't know if he's going to be able to get the win, because I can't trust that bullpen to nail it down for him. So good on Ray, not so good on the win.
And so to clarify before we move on, like for DFS, I think Ray is fine because he strikes out a lot of guys. That leads to DFS upside. It's just more in terms of the bet and the win prop that I don't feel as comfortable, just because of the variance with all the walks, which is worse for real life than fantasy.
Sounds like a very soft fade from you, Bukes. It's a fade, but it's a soft fade.
It's a fade for the question. It's a good Ray. I think I made that very clear.
All right, guys, good matchup in the NL East. Nats, Braves, Washington is minus 118, DK Sportsbook. Atlanta plus 105. Dallas Keuchel's actually been great, 3 straight wins. So chase or fade, the Braves are the team to pick here, Steve-O. I want you to be very clear once again.
Yep, I'll just continue doing what I've been doing all show long.
All 2 minutes.
The Nationals, quiet. The thing is with the Nationals is they're one of the best offenses in the league against left-handed pitching. They got a 341 WOBA, 184 isolated power, 105 WRC plus. Keuchel's been good. Like, there's been no doubt about that. But, we want to talk about unfavorable ballparks. SunTrust Park isn't really the best park to be pitching in. I think Keuchel's been pitching a little bit over his head, too, as well. I think this is one of the tougher matchups he'll face since he's come back basically in the second half of the season. So I'm actually going to side with the Nationals in this park. In this game. They've just been red hot. Like, they've just been getting it done on the offense with pitching. So I think the Nationals is a better bet here.
All right, yes, you in the Yoshi shirt.
It's actually a full Mario Kart. It's got a lot of characters. But
You're
here's
a character.
Here's the thing in this game, and with the way the line is set, it kind of a pick. I don't really see where the Braves have an advantage, because Patrick Corbin I see is a much better pitcher than Dallas Keuchel. Even though Keuchel's been decent lately, Corbin's been pretty solid all season long. And then against left-handed pitching, the Nationals 108 WRC plus compared to a 100 WRC plus for the Braves. So this line being set close to a pick, I think it should lean more heavily towards the Nationals. The only real concern I have is that their bullpen is awful.
All right, lowest run total of the night comes courtesy of the Phillies and Mets, with Zach Eflin and Steven Matz squaring off. Chase or fade, the pitcher's duel, and the game actually staying under 8 runs, Gregory.
So I'm going to chase this. I know that Steve likes Zach Eflin a decent amount as a GPP play. I also think for Matz, he's somebody who I've been fairly against for the entire season, but he's been really good at home this year, and he's also been really good the second half of the season since the All-Star break. He's strung together with 5 or 6 really good starts in a row where he's given up 3 or less runs. So looking at this game, I think that the run total is probably fair. It's for DFS. I think that Matz and Eflin both make for decent plays. This should be one of the lower scoring games of the night.
Steve?
Oh, I think Greg is way off. I think this game has sneaky upside for the over. When you just look at what Steven Matz has done against the Phillies, and quite frankly, he's been horrible. Like, the Phillies have absolutely rocked him this season. He's pitched 16 total innings, 19 runs allowed, 16 of them earned, only a 15.1 K percentage, and a 6.21 FIP. Like, he has just been annihilated by this team at Philly, in New York. It doesn't matter where they faced him. They've just hit him really well, and they have a Gene Segura at the top of the lineup who just mashes lefties, can set the tone for the rest of the lineup here. I think a lot of people are going to be flocking to Matz, and rightfully so. When you look at his home splits, he's been phenomenal. Like, you can't take that away from him. But for whatever reason, this Phillies team just has had his number all season long. I don't see that changing again tonight, so I think this game has really sneaky upside for the over here. Just set at 8 runs. Just seems way too low for the amount of damage Philly could do on their own.
All right, counterpoint. He has thrown against Philly this year, except when he pitched against them at home earlier in the year, 6 innings, 1 run allowed. It was just he had one game where he got hurt in the beginning against the Phillies. But other than that, his bad starts against him have come on the road. When he's been at home, he's been good, and that's been the story with him all season. When he pitches at home, he's really good. When he pitches on the road, he's terrible. So I discount the road starts that he pitched didn't go well because he pitched well against them at home.
Right.
Steve, while we're here, you want to counter the counter?
Yeah, he's going to get rocked tonight. So, I mean, just stack the Phillies.
All right, good point.
It's going to happen.
All right, I think we can move on now. Camera keeps cutting back to me. That's the universal sign of they're done. Boys, thank you. You've been so good. We'll bring you back later on. But first, tons on the way. We got a Super Bowl champ in studio, NASCAR news, something interesting about Julio Jones, and even more football.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Indianapolis. Whose salary jumped up this week? Eric Almirola, $7,800 up to $8,700. He started in the back. He was cheap. That means heavy ownership. That means his price goes up this week, but not because of performance. Eric Jones, $8,700 up to $9,400. If you stayed up late watching NASCAR last week, then you got to see Eric Jones win. If you stayed up late last week watching NASCAR, then you need to make better life choices. William Byron, $7,100 to $7,800. He started on the pole last week, and he did not lead a lap. He did not even finish on the lead lap. He was 2 laps down. Whose salary dropped this week? Joey Logano, $11,000 down to $9,600. He sucked lately. No sugarcoating it. He hasn't got a top 10 since New Hampshire. Alex Bowman, $8,200 down to $7,600. He sucked lately. There's no sugarcoating it. Since his win at Chicago, his average finish is 16th. Austin Dillon, $7,200 down to $6,600. He sucked since forever. And there's a rumor his no-talent brother is being forced out. That means we are 1 Dillon away. Fair play of the week, Kyle Busch, $12,000. He's too expensive. You can afford him. Of course you can. Last week in the Fantasy Racing World Championship, he was 20% owned. Come on, guys. It's Fantasy NASCAR. We're not splitting the atom here. Pick Kyle Busch. Michael McDowell, $5,800. He's got a top 20 his last 2 races at Indianapolis. Just don't wreck. Come on, Mike. Just don't wreck. All right, guys, check out the DK playbook for your DFS information needs. If you have NASCAR questions, hit me up on Twitter at @RaceForThePrize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
Let's keep the young quarterback talk flowing here because you're spitting out some hot takes here about these young quarterbacks. How about Kyler Murray with the Cardinals? Didn't have a great preseason, wasn't flashy like Daniel Jones, but what do you make of Murray and the Cardinals offense?
That is, all right, so people look at Baker Mayfield and they go, Cliff Kingsbury, Texas Tech, Houston, tried to recruit Kyler Murray, had Baker Mayfield, also had Johnny Manziel. It's all similar quarterbacks. To me, I have no clue if Baker Mayfield's going to be any good. He's got some of the best weapons in the NFL, but small sample size, no, they weren't playing for anything. Who knows what that's going to look like?
Yeah.
So they take that offense and they try and put it in the NFL. I think Kyler Murray, what you saw during the preseason, you blitz him, his natural instinct is to run. But the difference between Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State or Oklahoma versus Texas Tech is that everybody is faster than you in the NFL. The linebackers are faster than you. Some of the defensive tackles are just as fast as you because they take good angles. Blitz them. Again, this is going to be a tough year for the Arizona Cardinals. I know their issues last year. They are 3-13. They fired their coach after 1 year. They bring in Cliff Kingsbury, young, handsome, rugged guy. That ain't enough. That's not going to work. So Kyler Murray, it's going to be a rough year for Kyler Murray. It's just he's going to get sacked a lot. I have a feeling he's probably going to get hurt because then you see these young quarterbacks, they just go back to their natural instincts back when he was like, I don't even think this kid lost a game in high school. But he's a runner. And as soon as he feels pressure, it's like, hey, you got to save my life. A little bit like Josh Allen. But if he can throw on the run, and if he's accurate like Patrick Mahomes, who's another guy that Cliff Kingsbury had a relationship with, he may be able to salvage the season, but I think this is another 3-13 year for them.
Sheesh. Okay. Tons of excitement, as you had mentioned from the top. Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. A lot of people are picking them to win that division over the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've got OBJ. Landry's in the mix. Nick Chubb's getting a lot of attention here at DraftKings in the backfield. Your outlook of the Cleveland Browns.
For the record, I liked the Browns before everybody else jumped on the bandwagon. Like, my whole thing was they're building something special. They had all this draft capital. And they were using it the right way as opposed to the past where they were just throwing it around. They drafted a lot of good quality guys. But it's just there's something that I don't feel like this is the year. Okay, I know people are looking at Odell and all the weapons, and even their tight end's really good. I just don't feel like this is the year for them. I feel like they need to figure out how to win. I don't think they know how to win as an organization. And that takes time. You got a good glimpse of it last year. And then now you actually are going to start from beginning to end. And I would say, like, best case scenario for them is 9-7.
Okay.
If they can go 9-7, I think that is respectable. That's something you can build on. It kind of leaves like a, hey, if we just fix this and fix that, and maybe they lose 6 games by 10 points total or something like that, but they're in every single game. Those veterans and those young players will be veterans, and that'll give them, I guess, some something to think about during the offseason.
Baker Mayfield, though, has embraced Cleveland. So take his ability out of the picture. Do you believe in Baker the leader?
I loved Baker Mayfield coming out of college. I did. And a lot of people tried to compare him to Johnny Manziel. He was so different than Johnny Manziel. And they like to point to his issue in college when he got pulled over. He was in
police video.
And he's sprinting away, and the cops chase him down and tackle him. So everyone thinks he's like this bad guy. Or his antics on the sideline, taking the flag, sticking in the big O at Ohio State.
Shotgun the beer at the Indians game.
Well, but this is before he was even drafted.
Fair.
Even against Kansas, he was mouthing off. Because some kids wouldn't shake his hand. So he was like, all right, forget you then. But he's got a different mentality.
Yeah.
He's got a fighter mentality. He wasn't given anything. The guy kept walking on.
Former walk-on,
and earning starts. So he's not a Johnny Manziel. I mean, he's chaotic, but I want to say it's more controlled. With Manziel, I just feel like there was a give a crap level of 0 where he would just throw it up, and obviously, he couldn't make it in Canada, couldn't make it anywhere. Different player. But Baker Mayfield is built differently. And I think that's the type of guy, we'll use all these metaphors, but if you're actually in a battle, you look at the craziest, most down-to-earth guy, if that exists, and I think that's Baker. Because he'll be like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And you're not thinking about what's going to happen to you. You just hop in the wagon and go. And I think that is what quarterbacks need to have initially if they're going to lead any team.
Good stuff on that. Let's go to the Packers now. Fans are hoping for a serious turnaround this season. They've moved on from Mike McCarthy. Matt LaFleur is now the man in charge of the Packers offense. Hopefully he is on the sideline on 2 feet and not in one of those, what do you call it, go-kart things.
Yeah, towards Achilles playing hoops.
He did. Yeah, and Matt Patricia was even on a four-wheeler.
First of all, what are we doing here? Anyone over 35? I mean, you're really taking your life into your own hands.
Will Green Bay get back in the playoffs this year? And how do you see that relationship between Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur? A coach, by the way, that drew up some great stuff against the Patriots last year in Tennessee.
The first time. Everyone has a lot of success sometimes the first time they play the Patriots. But that team, did it make the playoffs? No, it didn't make the playoffs. Who's the other team that beat it? Oh, Detroit. Did they make the playoffs? No. Miami? They didn't make the playoffs either.
Set myself up for that one.
Yeah, you did. So you walked right into it. But here's a problem with Green Bay. They got a great division. Chicago's good. Let me see. Minnesota's going to be good. So just that division alone, and Detroit, I wouldn't worry about them. But the thing with Aaron and Matt LaFleur is how quickly can they trust each other?
Yeah.
Like, is Aaron Rodgers going to big time his head coach and not trust him? Because, again, he's been doing it a long time. He's had a lot of success. Can't teach an old dog new trick. He's already come out and said, I want to just do it on my own. That's not working. Like, that philosophy didn't work for you the last couple of years. So I think that, to me, is the most important thing, just that relationship. When he says, hey, listen, red right, ISO, check 42, whatever, does he sit there and go, hey, screw it, we're going to run this? If he tells them, listen, because every play has a complementing play associated with it that coach may want to use in the fourth quarter. So there has to be some trust. And I think that's the biggest obstacle for both those guys. And we'll see. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't, I don't take him as like I'm going to make sure you're comfortable. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know him. But he seems like there's always a little bit of arrogance to him that rubs people the wrong way.
See, it's his first different coach outside of Mike McCarthy. Christian, let's finish off with some season predictions now, because here at DraftKings with Sportsbook, we've got some props on the line here. Okay. Winner for NFL MVP in 2019?
Man. This always feels like the Heisman. It's never the guy that won it the year before. You would say Patrick Mahomes would win this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He's a front runner. It's not gonna, I'm gonna go with Russell Wilson. How about that? I'm gonna go with Russell Wilson. I think he's sneaky. Well, obviously he's better than sneaky good. Under the radar team. Everyone's kind of forgotten about them. Like, all their star players are gone. But Russell Wilson is still there. He's not handing off to Marshawn Lynch anymore. Or really, anyway, he's a drop back quarterback now. I'm gonna go with Russell Wilson. I'm gonna go the other direction. What are my odds on that?
I don't know. I have to take a look, because I was thinking
they're good.
Yeah, I was thinking you go with Brady or.
Nah, I don't think he'll get it this year.
Okay.
Limited wide receiver. They're going to run the ball a lot. He'll win games because of his impact, but his numbers. It's all a numbers game. It's like whoever has the most yards, whoever has the most touchdowns. Matt Ryan, Brady, Mahomes, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers. That's all it is. It's like the NBA MVP. Whoever has the most points and all that stuff, scoring leaders.
Right, triple doubles. Yeah. Super Bowl prediction: the matchup and who wins.
Every year somebody does this, and I hate it, but because I don't want to pick the Patriots. But at this point in time, why would you not pick the Patriots? So I'm going to go with Patriots in New Orleans. I'm going to go with
Everyone
Patriots
likes New Orleans.
Here's the other thing. Maybe I should change that, because New Orleans, every time I pick them, something happens. They go from having an unbelievable year, getting screwed at the end of it, they should have made it, to like the next year is terrible. So,
well, didn't the Chiefs get screwed too?
How did the Chiefs get screwed?
I don't know. The offsides, D Ford, if he, figured it out.
He was offsides.
Fair.
These are facts. So it wasn't like, it was a phantom offside.
There was a pass interference.
Hold your water. That's what I would tell him to do.
Okay, fine.
It would be, the Rams seem like a sexy pick also, but I don't know if they can do it twice in a row. Minnesota, a lot of people looking at Chicago, Mitchell Trubisky. Everybody's in love with him second year. Let's do that. Let's have a rematch. Of the Patriots and Chicago Bears. The 1985 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Wow.
Bears, Patriots win this time, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
like
so Brady gets his 7th, and that's it for Brady after that?
No, it's just rinse and repeat. That's what he does.
Thought I'd get you that time.
No. 45, man.
Yeah.
The dude's playing till he's 45.
You're only 5 years older than Brady, right?
God, the difference in our lives right now is crazy. Like, I keep sitting there going, when is that going to hit him where, like, he doesn't want to go into work? Because that's what happens. You don't want to go into work. You don't want to get hit. You're sick of people telling you what to do. They give you this stupid red piece of paper that has everything you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to eat, when you're supposed to get on the bus. You just want to break free. So, but he ain't going anywhere.
13-year tight end in the NFL, Christian Fourier. He does work on WEEI in Boston, also WBZ-TV on Patriots game days. Thank you very much for the time. We appreciate it. Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen, and with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash, number one wideouts just can't get out of the news. This from Falcons team reporter Kelsey Conway Thursday afternoon. Julio Jones says he's trying to be out there, but he doesn't know if he'll play on Sunday if he doesn't have a new contract. WTH! We all understood why Jones opted to not partake in preseason action to protect himself from further injury to his sore right foot, and the 30-year-old receiver has taken it a step further. Essentially, he's saying, pay me before the real games begin. Seems the Falcons are moving towards fulfilling Jones's wish. After fiddling with a few contracts earlier in the week, they have more cap space, about $9.5 million now, to get Julio a contract by the end of the week. It's Friday. Jones reportedly suited up for Friday practice, and to what extent, we don't know. Not clear. He was limited Thursday because his foot was still a little sore, but put some blame on the turf surface as well. Come on, this goes back to the looming contract. Jones ain't taking any risks on the practice field until the money is on the table. Dude's a gamer, though. He's played 16 games each of the last 2 years. Hard to imagine he won't be out there Sunday at the Vikings.
That was a lot of Brendan Glasheen, but I hope you enjoyed it. It's time for more football talk with DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler. I know they loved it. Also, Rosalie Michaels back with us here. And NFL price check, gang. We're looking ahead to Sunday. Makes sense, right? Week 1 on the way. Jameis Winston, 6,600 at home against Jimmy Garoppolo's Niners. Winston, second most expensive QB available because there are just tons of points projected in this one. You think he's worth it, Reed?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's going to be obviously pretty expensive, and you just look at his ownership right now, it's probably coming in as one of the highest projected ownership, because you just look at this game, this 51 implied game total, and a team total for Tampa Bay being around 26. They're not going to do it on the ground. Who's going to run the ball for them? We don't know. Dare Ogunbowale has been getting a lot of buzz in the offseason. Just no one is there in that backfield, and Aaron's is going to throw this ball. I mean, I don't see it going any other way other than Winston doing this. Inside the top 10 in DK fantasy points given up for Niners have been, they have 20.4 DK points to QBs, and only like 4 quarterbacks didn't throw for multiple touchdowns against the 49ers last year. So yeah, fire them up.
That rolled right off the tongue, Reed. That was impressive.
Thank you.
You've been working on that. What do you say, fantasy girl?
Stats, man. I had to come in hot in this segment.
Yeah, no, you've been sitting and waiting. What do you think, Rosalie?
It's almost like Reed's done this before.
Almost.
No, I just closed my eyes.
Yeah, I agree with Reed to a point. I mean, the Bucs obviously are going to have a strong vertical passing attack under BA. That's what we expect out of him. But the Niners pass rush really could do some damage up front against this offensive line that surrendered 19 sacks in the preseason. However, only 2 teams gave up more deep touchdown passes than the 49ers last season. So Winston could certainly eat up there. But I look at Jameis as a boomer bust this week. And boomer bust with that much chalk on him, he doesn't really interest me because he, like Reed said, he's going to be really popular because of the implied game total. And so I think the likelihood is boom here for Jameis, but the risk of the bust for me is too high as the second highest quarterback on the slate. So if I'm looking to save some money with a higher floor, I'm going to go Goff at 6,200 versus Carolina's D. They gave up the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks last year. Or, we talked about Lamar earlier. I like him at 6K.
Jeff, where do you fall on that boom-bust scale?
I mean, it doesn't even matter about what Jameis's outcomes is here. He's 6,600. He's the second most expensive quarterback. You can't play Jameis Winston. I think you're absolutely nuts if you play Jameis Winston this week, especially if he's projecting for a top 5 ownership role. I mean, just look at the rest of the DK board here for quarterback. You have Carson Wentz at 5,700, a 9-point favorite at home. Kyler Murray and Josh Allen, 2 mega upside dual threat quarterbacks at 5,600. Nick Foles going up against the Chiefs, who gave up the 5th most fantasy points per game to opposing QBs last year. You can't pay up $1,000 more for Jameis Winston, a guy who threw 14 interceptions in 9 starts last year. Give me a break. I think this guy is the easiest fade of week 1. I understand Tampa Bay and San Francisco as the potential to be a bit of a shootout, but there's other good spots on the slate. Again, save the money. Don't roster Winston. Spend up somewhere else.
Jeff, very decisive. We appreciate that. Chris Carson, 5,700 against the Bengals. He is listed as the Seahawks' top back. So would you pay for that, Rosalie? What do you think?
Well, let's see here. It's the #1 rushing offense. Carson's going to be the workhorse because pennies look like garbage in the preseason. I expect the touch count to be really high for Carson. The Seahawks run the ball 53% of the time. That's the most in the league. That's a ton of opportunity against Cincinnati, who gave up a heck of a lot of fantasy points to running backs last season. So, it's new coaching in Cincinnati. I get that, but I'm not seeing that there's going to be much improvement in their rushing defense. And there are lots of great options around that same question, like Carry-On versus AZ. But I don't think it's going to be too chalky. So I'm going to buy him. I like him a lot this week.
Jeff, you agree?
No, I guess I'm just going to hate on every pick in this one. Because I kind of feel the same way. I mean, Chris Carson is basically a nothing in the passing game for Seattle. And Rashad Penny admittedly didn't go gangbusters in the preseason, but they did use him a bit more in the pass game. Pete Carroll is talking him up a bit, and they like the way he's worked in the pass game. So I do think Rashad Penny is overall a better back than Chris Carson. I never like to rely on lead backs who have better backups just sitting there behind them, because you never know when the coach's sentiment is going to change. I feel like Marlon Mack at $100 less, who's locked in to a workhorse role, going to be far lesser owned in my opinion. Even a couple other guys like Mark Ingram, Tevin Coleman, probably just better GPP plays. It's a good spot for Chris Carson. I fully admit that. It's not that he couldn't get 28 carries and go off. And I don't not as down on him as I am on Jameis, but again, just another player I feel is probably a better fade than a play this week.
Reed?
You couldn't go one day without talking about Tevin Coleman. Come on. Oh, he just...
He could probably go one day. We just don't have to put him on the show.
That's true. Of course, there's always an argument to go cheaper. I get what Jeff's saying. Like, you don't have to play these guys. I mean, you talk about these guys, especially with the running backs, there's so many opportunities out there with really only 4 or 5 guys getting the bulk of their carries. And you got to think in Seattle with Mike Davis, who we saw last night, not being there anymore, who occupied about 37% of the snaps in Seattle last season. Now all of that is going to go to Carson and Penny, the majority going to Carson. And if you just look at Cincinnati, these guys gave up almost 70 plays or 68 plays last year, and around 43% of them were carries. And in fantasy football, we all know this, volume is king. And Carson, who had the 5th most yards on 45% snaps, this guy is absolutely going to eat. Cincinnati has a terrible run defense. They have a rookie starting at middle linebacker, with Montez being out. I really don't think that this defense, even with this new offensive look, with Zach Taylor, is going to be able to stop Seattle. The only way this doesn't work out is if Seattle pulls their starters by the 3rd quarter, and that's the only reason why. So I'm at Rosalie here. I really like Carson. Fire him up.
I could be wrong, but I think we're going to find some consensus with this one. T.Y. Hilton, a whopping $6,600. His price came out before Andrew Luck walked out the door. So would you even consider that price with Jacoby Brissett now throwing him the ball, Jeff?
Not this week. Look, there's going to be some weeks where you can go with a Brissett Hilton stack, but what I would do is I would wait till it gets cheaper, because really, you kind of already hit on it, Kaufman. I mean, his price should probably be about $1,000 less, considering the quarterback change here. And then you also have to look at the matchup. I mean, the Chargers gave up the 50th game for the wide receiver position in terms of fantasy points last year. It's a solid secondary with a good pass rush. It's just not a fertile ground for a big game for T.Y. Hilton. So, again, there's going to be times this year we can take a shot. T.Y. Hilton and Jacoby Brissett had a couple big games back in 2017. Wait till they're cheaper. Wait till really nobody wants to play them. Then go for it. But
well, you saw it on the screen. He averaged about 18 fantasy points a game last year, but a very different situation, obviously, with Luck than it expects to be anyway with Brissett. So, Rosalie, you concur? Too much?
I concur. I do concur, but for a slightly different reason. It's not the quarterback change that actually has me off of T.Y. If you look at his career, T.Y. averages 1.76 fantasy points per target from Luck. Now, that number drops a bit with Brissett, but not by much. It goes to 1.71 fantasy points per target, so not a lot. The Chargers are also going to be without starting Pro Bowl safety Derwin James, but they're still a pretty solid D. But the biggest reason I'm off of T.Y. is because of the price, like Jeff said, but also I really believe that this is going to be a Marlon Mack game. I think there's going to be a lot of Marlon Mack as they kind of change that offensive look a little bit. And at $6,600, I can get Thielen for $200 more or Godwin for $400 less, and I've got a little bit more trust in what they're going to do this week.
Reed, do you also think a return of the Mac?
Jeez. Yeah. wait for those zingers for me.
I just can't believe you didn't see it coming. I'm disappointed in you.
No, I'm with these. I'm with the crew here. When you just look at the matchup, and Jeff makes a really good point, is that there are going to be times, the sentiment on T.Y. Hilton right now is probably the lowest, but there's probably a solid chance that it's going to get lower than this. At the 6,600, the matchup is not there. When you look at the Chargers, their secondary, even without Derwin James, like Rosalie was mentioning, still pretty good against the deep ball. That's T.Y. Hilton. They're 17th last year, giving up 20-plus yard plays to the opposing wide receivers, and that's T.Y.'s game. And so I really don't think – I think if you want to attack this game, it's Marlon Mack. It's the tight ends, but T.Y. Hilton, just wait and see with him.
Okay, thank you, boys and girl. I got bad news for the viewers, good news for you. You're all done. Enjoy week one. Have fun. We will wrap up with some more baseball shortly after some Francesa Friday fun with my pal Mike. He's the host of Mike's on WFAN in New York, of course. I'm talking about Mike Francesa. We are both excited for football. Season kicked off last night. Let's start there. Packers in Chicago. Game stunk, Mike. It was just terrible.
Yeah, it just shows you how teams are not ready to play. And preseason has become such a problem for the NFL that these teams are not in any way ready. The offenses are not ready. There's no cohesion to the offenses. The special teams are not ready. A lot of players are sucking air in the fourth quarter. They just do not get ready anymore in training camp, just in terms of everyday practices. There are no more two-a-days. They don't push the players hard. They don't play them in preseason games, and it shows. The product was awful last night. Trubisky played terribly. But let's be honest, even Rodgers had trouble making plays. Now, they're good defensive teams, especially the Bears are a good defense. No question about that. But that was just a dreadful opener. It really was. In every way, that was a dreadful opener.
Well, I'm certainly hoping Sunday's going to be a lot better, and we're going to get into those games in a little bit. But
you're going to get a lot of sloppy product in game one. That's all there is to it. You're going to get a lot of teams that aren't ready to play.
Well, we got to get to the nonsense in Oakland, right? Because for a guy so concerned with protecting his head, Antonio Brown has been acting like he doesn't have a brain in it. It appeared his latest tantrum, in which he called GM Mike Mayock several derogatory words, many of which we probably can't say here, put him on the verge of getting him suspended, maybe released, possibly $30 million lighter in the wallet, those guarantees. And now, after an emotional apology, as has been reported, Brown will play on Monday.
I called it yesterday. While everyone was said he was going to get suspended, I said, I don't believe Gruden wants to suspend him. Look for an apology. Here's the problem. And really what this does is really you want to see how Mayock reacts, because what happened was Brown decided, I don't have to listen to Mayock. I only deal with Gruden. Mayock get lost. And what Mayock finally did was close the door with Gruden and say, hey, listen, you got to back me up here, or I have no authority with this team. And right now, Mayock's authority with the team is very much in question, because Gruden wants his home run hitter out there. He wants his guy he paid for. That's what he wants in his offense. And he's saying to Mayock, listen, I'll get him to apologize. But Mayock's saying, no, I need him to be suspended. Otherwise, these other players are never going to listen to me about anything. Bottom line is the guy who takes the big hit here is not Brown. It's not Gruden. It's Mayock. Mayock has no authority. He is just a hired hand now. He has no authority with this franchise.
Well, not only that, I mean, he's the easiest guy to get rid of the three, really, if this thing truly boils over. And he just got the gig.
He found out what the pecking order is. Despite the apology, he found out that it's Gruden, Brown, Mayock. That's what he found out.
So maybe it'll be him that'll be all in or all out.
He probably wishes he was all out right now, but he's there, so he's going to have to live with it. But the problem is not even the fact it's him and Brown. It's the fact that Brown has really hurt his image with the rest of the team now. Yeah. That is the biggest problem for Mayock. And Gruden, I said it yesterday during the show. I said, I guarantee you Gruden does not want to suspend him. He wants to play him because Gruden's whole deal is, I can coach characters. I can coach wackos. I can live with that. But what it can't happen is you can't have him completely disrespect one of the employees. The problem is Mayock doesn't have any power there to begin with. He's a personnel guy who answers to Gruden, so he got put in his place, and his place right now is behind Brown.
Yeah, you're not getting rid of the coach with the 10-year, $100 million deal either.
And not getting rid of Brown either.
Let's talk Chiefs. They gave Tyreek Hill a 3-year, $54 million extension, $35 million guaranteed. And, only months ago we were wondering if this guy would even still have a job in Kansas City this year. But the club clearly all in. So despite his obvious talent, was this a good idea?
Listen, here's the bottom line. To the Chiefs, and they know this, and they're telling you, he's irreplaceable. He is an irreplaceable force in this league. He is almost a virtually unstoppable player. He makes that offense go. You must double team him on every play. If you don't, you're going to get hit. And if you do, you're going to get hit on the other side, and you're going to get hit by the tight end. You're going to get hit by the back on the wheel. They have an unstoppable offense right now. An absolute unstoppable offense. As a matter of fact, they're facing the one team that played them well last year, and the Jaguars, who have a great defense. The Jaguars were the only team that actually kept them down last year. We'll see if they can do it again in week 1. They might be able to. If they don't, nobody will. If they put up a big number on Jacksonville, watch out, because they'll put up a bigger number on everybody else.
About 8 minutes left and one more segment till the weekend. Steve Buchanan and Greg Ehrenberg are here for the MLB Bargain Bin. I want to know which cheap players you guys are interested in tonight. You got a whole lot to choose from. Full 15-game slate. Steve, which pitcher under $7K would you roster tonight?
Yeah, for pitcher, I don't really mind Zach Eflin in this spot. Like, overall, I would never be going out of my way to taking Zach Eflin in a lineup here. But he's coming off a pretty decent month of August, 299 WOBA, 4.19 xFIP. There's just not a ton of value on this slate when it comes to starting pitchers. So he looks like one of the more attractive options. You just start to get near the bottom of the barrel here. You just got guys with no strikeout upside, going against matchups where they can end up getting shelled. So Eflin of the, the kind of the misfits, I guess you can say, at the 7K and below range, I think he's one of the better options.
Greg, we already knew from earlier in the show he liked Eflin, probably like Zach Efron as well. What do you think here? Under 7K?
Ugh.
I did say it was good.
Well, it was a showstopper, that's for sure. It was like if you're going 70 on the highway and you just hit the brakes and everybody gets ejected out the front of the car. That's what it was.
Boy, no seatbelt either, huh?
It stopped me in my tracks.
That's bad news.
So I agree with Steve. It's a little hard to pick a cheap pitcher here. I'm going with Tyler Mahle. He's been better at home than on the road this year, 4.01 ERA when he's pitching in Cincinnati. And the other thing also, last week he made his first start in over a month. He was injured, and he scored 20.45 DK fantasy. So I feel like he's in good form right now. And he's in a really good matchup against the Diamondbacks. They have a 90 WRC plus against right-handed pitching.
It's kind of impressive we figured out how to silence Greg. All right, how about a first baseman? I don't know, 4K or cheaper, somewhere along those lines. Greg, right back to you.
Yeah, so I'm going with G-Man Choi. He's hitting cleanup for the Rays tonight, so good lineup spot. And he's going up against Clay Buchholz, who Buchholz is not having a good year. And he's somebody who's so hard to get a read on because if you look at his numbers year by year, he's completely different each season. He's good, he's bad, he's a high strikeout pitcher, he's a ground ball pitcher, he's a fly ball pitcher. He recreates himself every single season, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. This year, he's an ERA north of 5. He's giving up a 377 WOBA to left-handed hitters. Choi is a 123 WRC plus against right-handed pitching, so I think it's a good spot for him.
Bukes?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ohtani in this spot. He's going up against Lucas Giolito, which obviously isn't a great matchup here, but when you actually look at the splits for Giolito, he's got a 4.47 xFIP at home against lefties. That's the highest amongst all of his splits away and on the road against both righty and lefties. And he's got trouble with home runs. He's allowed 6 home runs on the year to lefties at home. So, for the price point that you're getting on Ohtani, he's been very up and down all season long. He's not somebody you rely upon on a nightly basis, but I feel like it's a pretty good tournament play in a matchup that he's definitely not going to have any ownership in here against the White Sox.
Same price range, different position. Steve, give me a shortstop who's a good play at 4K or less.
Yeah, by far, it's Gene Segura here. Like, I wrote him up in my cheat sheet here. I talked him up a little bit earlier. It's just a criminally low price for him against a lefty. He's just absolutely crushed lefties, especially on the road. 368 WAR, 283 isolated power. Overall, a 360 on-base percentage against lefties. So it makes perfect sense why he's leading off today, not batting in his usual fifth spot here. Like, even if you're interested in bats, like, Segura's got to be in your lineup. Like, I feel like it's almost a free square at the shortstop position here. So Segura is by far the best option here at shortstop.
Greg, who's your best option?
Yeah, so I like I like Corey Seager here. He's also somebody who's really cheap, much cheaper historically than he usually is. And he's in a better lineup spot now. He was hitting in kind of like the middle towards the end of the lineup for the Dodgers. And then he moved up towards the top of the lineup when Max Muncy got hurt with a wrist injury. So now Seager batting second, playing pretty well recently, averaging over 11 DK points in his last 3 games. And then also he gets a good matchup against Jeff Samardzija. I don't buy Samardzija's success this season at all. He's a 3.61 ERA, but 4.51 FIP. I always tend to think Samardzija is about to get rocked every time he takes the mound. This shouldn't be any different pitching in LA.
Greg, let's stay with you. We'll take a deep dive into the bin on outfielders, like your T-shirt, like a real deep dive Super Mario Brothers at the bottom of the DVD bin. I'm talking the version with John Leguizamo. That level of outfielder here for less than $3,500.
Do you know what he's talking about, Steve?
I don't have a clue. Like, it's Friday. Like, he's probably feeling a little froggy. I have no clue.
I can't believe you don't know that movie. Go on. Major failure. It's a new one.
Adam, we're like in our 30s. Like,
well, 20s for me, but.
All right, time is short, fellas. $3,500.
All right, so Chad Pinder for me. The A's have the 3rd highest implied run total of the night. And going up against Spencer Turnbull, he's really struggled lately. He's given up 15 earned runs in his last 3 starts. And Pinder's moved up to the 3 spot in the lineup, really cheap price. So I think he makes for a good value.
Bukes?
Yeah, thank you for just saying my name. We're going to go with Philip Ervin here. I mean, against lefties at home, he's just been an absolute force here. I mean, I like Robbie Ray altogether, but if there's one guy in the Reds lineup I would be worried about, it would be Ervin. He's got a 401 WOBA, 256 isolated power against lefties at home. And Ray's given up home runs. Like, that's one thing, we talked about the walks earlier. Home runs have also been an issue for him, too. 22 of his 25 that he's given up have come against righties, 13 of those on the road. The only issue with Ervin here is that he is a pinch hitting liability. Once the lefty comes out, once Ray is out, Ervin is probably out of this game as well. So you have to, kind of, bake that into the salary there that at most maybe you're getting 2 to 3 at bats out of him. But if he ends up hitting a home run, like, that's all you need from Ervin here. So someone with good power against the lefties makes a lot of sense.
The fact you've never seen that movie insults me on a personal level, but we don't have time for that. Slate-approved pick, Bukes. Slate-approved pick. Be quick.
Yeah, like I said, I like Ray a lot here in this spot. Aside from Ervin here, I think he's in a really good spot against the Reds.
Greg, equally quick.
Clayton Kershaw, for one, it's going to tilt Steve because he hates Clayton Kershaw, but really good matchup for him at home against the Giants. 2.53 ERA for Kershaw when he pitches at Dodger Stadium this season.
Kershaw, thanks.
Boys, you're terrific. Go rent Super Mario Brothers. Find it somewhere. All right, that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do it. If you're bored, you can rewatch on the Sweat Twitter account, I guess. Next show is going to be Sunday, 10:30 in the morning, Week 1 edition on SNY. The regular show comes your way on Facebook, Twitter, Inside Your Eyelids, everywhere else, 11:30. If you happen to be in New Jersey, you can join me in Hoboken, the Pisner House. Donovan McNabb, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, Rashad Jennings, Sean O'Hara. We are going to make it rain. Good night.